Code 1, civil priority. Isolation now in effect. To avoid the risk of contamination, please stay indoors and await further instructions.
Well, good morning, Tribe World. It's Ray here again, bringing you another podcast interview in these troubled times. Hope you're all keeping well and getting through each day. It's not easy, that's for sure. I'm joined now by a tremendous young man who played one of our iconic characters in the tribe, who's still very much loved his character and talked about. Join me in welcoming Nick Miller, who of course played Tribe. Good morning, Nick.
Hello, everyone.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm great, thank you, Ray. How are you?
I'm also getting through, Nick. I'm, as I think some of the fans might know, I'm stranded here in Australia, you know, and which isn't a bad place to be. I mean, we're very lucky. We've got a nice night looking out into parkland, and so we're able to go to for nice walks. And what about you, Nick? You're up in Auckland?
Yes. So I'm currently in Auckland, New Zealand, and we've been under lockdown here for 3 weeks now, going into our fourth. And if you follow the news around the world, you know we jumped onto the whole quarantine for COVID-19 pretty hard and pretty quickly, but it seems to be having the desired effect. So yeah, feeling safe, but a little bored in quarantine.
I bet. And what have you been doing to get yourself through? You're lucky. You're able to work at home, aren't you?
Actually, I am able to actually go into work. I am considered an essential worker with what I do these days, which is I still work in television, but I'm an editor primarily these days. And there's a whole nation of people locked in at home, and they all want something to watch. So I help provide that for them.
That's great, isn't it? Now, to the folks listening, Nick and I were having a chat before we recorded, and my dream was that post the Tribe to work with Nick again as an actor, and then I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to be working with him on the production side, either editing. And I know all your fans, Nick, will be thrilled to know that you're still, although you're doing the production side, which is great, that you're still very much into the acting and
oh yes,
and that's terrific. So I'm delighted about that, and I know all the tribal brothers and sisters will be too. And so, Nick, what else do you do? I mean, you're able to go into work, and are the streets quiet? It must be weird, is it? It must be like being in an episode of The Tribe.
Oh, it's very quiet, and in fact, it's very reminiscent of The Tribe. I think about when we were doing location shoots in downtown Wellington back in the day, and we'd time those shooting days to be on weekends and on public holidays when the streets would naturally be quiet. Of course, we would have also permission from the Wellington City Council to do the shooting, so they'd make sure it was locked down for us anyway. But of course, when we were doing the shooting, we were presenting a post-apocalyptic type scenario. So the art department would dress the set with lots of rubbish and broken down cars and graffiti and all very fitting with the look of the show. So we haven't quite got to that stage up here in Auckland yet. Like, it's very quiet but still very tidy. But who knows how it'll go if this lasts for a lot longer.
No, I mean, as long as we don't see Zoot driving around screaming of power and chaos, I think we'll be okay. But
yes.
And Nick, so you're able to go into the office, and outside of office hours, what do you do to keep yourself occupied? I mean, you used to work out a lot. Actually, you're still running.
Oh, absolutely, yes. I mean, it's I think it's key to maintaining a healthy state of mind. Lockdown or no lockdown is to keep fit and healthy. So what I've been doing lately is lots of walking and lots of cycling and a little bit of running when I have the energy. But basically just, giving your body a chance to get the heart rate up, pull some fresh air into your lungs. Of course, we understand that this COVID-19 is a respiratory illness, so looking after your cardiovascular health is very important. And also just for the de-stress element of getting out in the sunshine, and of course it might be raining where you are, but just giving your body a chance to sort of get off the couch and use some energy up and feel alive is important.
Have you always been
for
interested
mental health.
Have you always been quite active in physical health, Nick?
Oh, very much so. I mean, back in the tribe days, I was very much into rock climbing, actually. So I was studying at university at the time, and we had a fantastic indoor rock climbing wall available that I would use every single day, and that certainly helped keep my sanity through my studies. But yes, personally, I've always been into it, and not just necessarily for any kind of, I guess, vanity, but for maintaining an emotional balance and good mental health. I find it's important to have a physical outlet to keep healthy in that way.
So with the rock climbing, have you got any ambitions to climb Mount Kilimanjaro or anything like that?
Sure. Once the flights resume, I'd love to do that.
Is it? And Nick, I have to say, and I know, and again, I'm terribly, I don't mean to be sexist in any way, but I know some of your female fans will agree with me. I was sitting in my office looking at some rushes, and that's the daily footage coming in, and I was very jealous, I have to say. I looked, there was a scene with you and Lex doing a fight, and you were both protested, and I thought, my God, I wish I could look like Nick Miller. You know, I'd give him my six-pack, Nick, is confined to beer, but you and I know that a lot of your fans have always noted that, and but yeah, in all seriousness, Nick, I agree with you. It's very important to, isn't it, to in the best of times, to try and have that sense of physical well-being, mental well-being, and more so now, though, it's very, and you know, we get a lot of messages, Nick. There's a lot of frightened, anxious people, and understandably so. It's an uncertain times. But have you any advice you could give to anybody that's struggling at this time?
Wow. Any advice for people struggling at this time? You know, everyone's on their own journey, and I would hate to be so presumptuous as to tell people how to live their life. I think any advice I have would be advice for any day, not just in times of quarantine, and it would be to look after the ones close to you, your family. I assume people are locked down mostly with family, and you know, give them some space when you can, and they'll give you space, because of course we're cooped up all together. So just having mutual love and respect for each other, and looking after your own physical and mental health is pretty much all I could really say. Is you know, don't ask too much of yourself. You know, don't try and turn yourself into a physical specimen like a superhero. It's okay just to, you know, keep your expectations low and just try and get through. Take it easy.
That's wise and good. I mean, yeah, a lot of the kind of news cycles as well is, you know, so there's so much speculation and uncertainty, and I think as well to be careful what you kind of, I mean, not to let the imagination run wild, because it's not apocalyptic, it's not Armageddon, it's very difficult.
No.
And tragic. I mean, what a shame for the people that are grieving, who have lost loved ones, but on the other side, that you know, we'll get through. And I think that just to take all the advice of the governments and things like that, and
I would also probably build on what you just said there with regards to the news, and perhaps just turn the news off. And perhaps take what they say with a grain of salt. And perhaps just read a book, and the news can whip people up into a frenzy, and they're not necessarily always correct. So I think maybe it's okay to turn the television off and do something else.
Again, I totally agree with that as well, Nick. We my wife and I started a charity a number of years ago, the Cloud9 Children's Foundation, and we we work with a lot of people who do struggle and have anxieties and difficulties, and actually that's one of the from some of the professionals, the psychiatrists and psychologists, they actually say that in this age, if you do have anxiety, I mean, two things. One, don't be frightened to ask for help, and it's a sign of strength, not weakness, to talk. Mm-hmm. Discussions are very therapeutic, but also yes, as you rightly say, Nick, just turn the news off and don't don't let it kind of torture you and because very rarely the imagination is an amazing thing, really, isn't it? And it can be like fast food where you pollute your thoughts and mind with worries.
Absolutely.
And just as Nick says, to look after yourself physically and that certainly helps. It's a very de-stressful. Not like me. I rely on Pinot Noir, Nick, I have to say, which is so.
Oh, don't let me mislead you. Pinot Noir is part of my health regimen too.
And I tell you, I've got the most amazing. I joke about. I got my right arm is extraordinary and good. I got a big muscle on one arm from lifting that. So Nick, a lot of your fans will be, because Pride was a tremendously popular character and still to this very day, and. So, were you always a creative soul as a young boy growing up? Did you always get drawn to the arts? Did you be an actor?
You know what? My first ever memory of as in like the earliest thing I can remember in my own real life as Nick Miller is of myself, maybe 4 years old, playing in back in the early 1980s. I'm really showing my age here. Televisions were made with a wooden frame that the cathode ray tube projector screen thing would sit inside of. And I remember one of these hollowed out wooden frames sitting in the empty lot next door to the house, and myself actually playing inside this wooden frame, pretending I was on television. So I guess to answer your question, I always did see myself doing something in television because my earliest memory is playing inside a television. But I actually, as I was growing up, I envisioned myself joining the military, actually, either as a soldier or as a pilot or something like that. But I actually see that as kind of similar to what it is to be an actor, because like you rely on your inner strength and your camaraderie and your preparation alone in order to do the job well. So I guess those qualities actually carried over into the character of Pride as well, because he was stoic and a leader of men, and of course liked to live in the forest and do the wilderness thing too. So,
and Nick, any of your family in the military or in the arts or?
My grandfather was in the Navy, so yes, the New Zealand Navy, the Royal New Zealand Navy. In terms of a direct relative involved in the arts, I'm told that a relative of mine is Tony Hancock, who was a famous English performer from the early 50s, I think it was, black and white TV days.
Yeah, I mean, really one of the major names, actually. I mean, Tony Hancock was an extraordinarily gifted comedian who, just huge. I mean, he was, these days he'd be right up there. I mean, he's the equivalent of Robin Williams or whatever it is. Yeah, he committed suicide, Tony Hancock. It was amazing. And that pathos, where, he was, in fact, he was one of my parents' favorite comedians. That's incredible. And
yes.
So I wonder, through your mum's side or your dad's side? Do you think
my mum's side.
Well, isn't that interesting? That's fantastic. So you never know genetically the DNA and how it comes down. And Nick, before again we were recording, you were mentioning that you get down to Wellington a bit. You actually worked for a number of years on Avatar, didn't you?
Well, I had a small role in the movie Avatar, and it's a bit of a heartbreaking story, to be honest. And I try not to tell it to too many people it's because of it. But I did get the opportunity to work on Avatar with James Cameron, and Sam Worthington and Sigourney Weaver and all those guys, and we shot a few scenes, and it was a fantastic experience. And then 3 years later, the movie comes out, and my scenes were not in the final cut, and it was a tremendously heartbreaking experience for myself because, of course, I mean, it was the biggest movie of all time, and I was hoping to see myself in it. But it's also the nature of the industry, and it was certainly humbling to me, to my ego, to go through that experience. But you know, it's all just a story I can tell people nowadays.
No, but that's no. I was mentioning to Nick, my grandson, who was just a baby when Nick was on The Tribe. You know, wants to be a filmmaker and is very talented and very gifted, and I've tried everything to steer him away from it because it's a hard industry. It's painful industry. It's and that happens all the time, Nick. I mean, the number of you know, it is, and it is. And if you're a creative being, if you've got a sensitivity, which is the essential kind of ingredients to be in the arts, you know, you've got to be very empathetic, and that would hurt, and I can imagine that very much so. And
there are lessons to be learned too around ego, because I mean, to be an actor is to nurture the ego, and of course one can get an inflated sense of self, and I'm so special, I'm so important, I'm a star, and this kind of thing. And if you don't keep a check on that, then you're bound to experience heartbreak, because where else is there for you to go? And so, I mean, you know, what was my character's name on The Tribe? His name was Pride, and it's just such a beautiful sort of rounded lesson there. You know, like to keep one's pride in check and be humble and be down to earth, and then, you know, the only way is up from there. You can be pleasantly surprised by things rather than bitterly disappointed when your expectations are out of check.
Yes. No, I think that's an interesting observation. I totally agree.
Absolutely.
It's very difficult. I mean, you know, just in parallel, you know, I love music, I love writing, and I thought I'd make a living as a writer. And my mother used to clip me around the ear and say, "Stupid little boy, you can't even spell." You know, I mean, I left school very young, but
yes.
But I'm amazed that constantly amazed at anybody that would ever, you know, like pay money or any success. I've been very blessed, but I do it for $50 a week. I need to do it, and it's you know, I often say it's if you're creative, it's a niche that you got to scratch. You got to do it. And Nick, what about music? You were doing some DJing for a while, were you? And you were into that.
Oh yes, absolutely. I still am. So I started my love affair with DJing around about the same time. Well, actually, a few years earlier that I began work on The Tribe. So I've always been into techno music, and I got into that when I was about 15 years old. And it has not stopped. I still love it to this day, and I still DJ at clubs and parties and little things around New Zealand from time to time. And it's just it's something I'm always going to do. Like in previous generations, I think the thing to do was to get good at guitar, and you'd learn to, you know, play an acoustic or an electric guitar, and you'd carry that hobby or that love through one's entire life. And with electronic music being the popular thing these days, I think there are a lot of people, perhaps even listening to this, that are now into DJing, and will probably carry that love through for the rest of their life too. And I think it's great. I mean,
techno music. I'm just wondering, was Gary Newman an influence at all?
Gary Newman? I can't sound familiar.
Okay, I must send you some links here. He was. This is probably me being an old dinosaur thinking I'm hip and up with what the time. This is going back probably, when was he, in the 80s? He was one of the pioneers, actually.
An English singer?
Yeah, Gary Newman. Quite interesting. Very into that kind of electronic. And who are your influences in electronic music? Anybody in particular?
Oh, I could name off a few. Carl Cox. I don't suppose you'd be familiar with Carl Cox, Raymond.
No, I'll send you Gary Newman. You send me Carl Cox, and we'll.
I'll send you Carl Cox after this. For sure.
Yeah, no, I'd be interested actually. And no, I love it. I love music. I look for music and still play to this day and write music and love all kinds of things. And you know, I was joking with Tom Hearn the other day. I mean, saying he and I are about the same age because I love rap music and Tom's a great rapper and you know, so you know,
hasn't Tom done well for himself?
Yes, he's done tremendously.
He has done very well.
Yeah, and do you know, Nick, what you were saying? I mean, Tom is the epitome of a nice human being who's very humble and kept his feet on the ground. But I have to say again, without embarrassing you, I think all the cast, you know, because we don't just I as a producer never just cast somebody that people's spirit and precisely for that kind of human quality. And I think that's even more important than at times, you know, than you know, you don't want a studio that's not big enough for somebody's ego. I wouldn't.
Yes.
I just. That's why I'm not really into some of the nothing against Hollywood. It's mecca for the industry, but you know, you want people that want to join you on a journey and believe in what you're doing, and you certainly were that. You did a great job, Nick, on with Pride, and you know, I get a lot of. I mean, I'm unfortunately as a writer, you tend to be like the you know, the kind of grim reaper, you know, that we, you know, killed off Zoot. Unfortunately, that was a mistake. But I had some storylines in my head, and then Amber, and with Pride. It's interesting that I remember you and I had a chat about it. And, you know, I had some ideas to do a backstory in the future. So though the character wasn't was killed off, that I thought that I would do some backstory and you would come back with Amber. But again, the way the world is and the business, it's just it takes on a different dimension. But that you know, who knows in the future? But
who knows? Well, there's a classic trope of writing, isn't there, that says you must be willing to murder your darlings.
That's right. It is.
Yes.
And you know, we need to do this for, you know, to keep something fresh. And you know, after 200 episodes or 250 episodes, it's you know, you've got to introduce different things, and that's part of it. That so Nick, you know, the folks would be interested if you remember, how did you get the part of Pride?
Well, yeah, it's funny you mentioned about wanting to make sure you cast nice people, because I remember in vivid detail, what it was like coming down to Wellington and meeting yourself and having those auditions. So the way I got the role of Pride was I received a phone call from my actor's agent, which is standard how these things begin, and said, oh, you know, we've got this project, and they sent me a few tapes because you'd already shot the first couple of seasons of The Tribe, so there was some material for me to look at for reference to understand the tone and the story and that sort of thing. So I remember reviewing the tapes and looking at the script, and it was the script I was supplied for the audition was a monologue before going into battle, and so it was kind of like rousing the troops and inspiring them to go forth into a dangerous situation. It was quite a fun little speech, and so I learned it and went along to the audition and did it in front of the camera, and more or less forgot about it from then. But I quickly received another call from my agent after yourself and your producers had seen my audition, as well as I assume some others, and decided that you'd like to see me. Quickly followed by a flight from Auckland down to Wellington to do an in-person audition and meet everyone, try on some costume options. I remember being put in that dreadlock wig for the first time. It was, this is a bit of a surprise. I had no idea that was going to happen. Yeah. And then meet everyone, say hello. You and I had a conversation. I remember being asked something along the lines of, if I had $1 million, what would I do with it, or something, and would I look after poor people? I think you were just trying to get a gauge for who I was as a person, if I were to be fortunate enough to be given the role. And I said something or other. I can't quite remember my response, but then I was quickly on a shuttle back to Wellington Airport to fly back to Auckland, and before I'd even gotten on the plane back to Auckland, in fact, my actor's agent had phoned me back and said, you've been offered the role, would you like it? And I said yes, and so that was that. And then I quickly had to sort of rearrange my life because we were rocking into production really quickly, as I remember, like within a matter of a couple of weeks probably. So I was actually in the middle of my university studies at the time, and I quickly had to sort of rearrange all that and get my life down to Wellington within probably 2 weeks, maybe less, to begin production on season 3. And so it was all very, very quick for me in terms of having the opportunity being offered to me and being down in Wellington doing it.
Yeah. And Nick, what were you studying at university? The fans will be interested in that.
Yeah, I was studying political science and minor in philosophy. So I had ambitions to become a journalist, actually.
That's interesting. But I mean, coming back to what you were saying, Nick, that you certainly, I remember it very well that seeing your audition tape, the camera loved you, and you certainly had the gifts and talents as an actor. And I remember I talked, and I Pride was a very, very important role, really, and you have this sense. It's a wonderful thing, really. It's Pride, as you say, is a leader, but had this innate spirituality, and that's the thing of stillness. It's quite interesting because I love Japanese film and culture and the Shinto religion, and there's a stillness. I can't really explain it, but there's something. It's a very strong. It's it's kind of few words, but very, very powerful presence, really. And you had that, without embarrassing you, and brought a lot of interesting layers to the role, and a very, very important role, because we wanted to explore through the eco tribe, kind of a different dimension to the urban kind of landscape, the aesthetic, for nature, the natural world, our beautiful Mother Earth, the planet. And Nick, I don't know if I was always very interested I'm interested anyway in indigenous cultures, but, so that's what, and I'm sadly responsible for that wig, and that would have broken your neck. How was that wig to wear? It was huge, wasn't it? I felt so sorry. I thought, oh my goodness, poor Nicky, you need a good physique just to wear that wig.
I have to confess, I was not fond of that wig.
Oh, no,
it was very, very heavy, and it was held in place with some very sharp pins that went directly into my own hair and scalp, and it was. I got to be honest, it was a source of much displeasure on my part, but I did my best to suck it up and get through.
No, you got through it, and then at least we give it a bit of a trim in there.
Yes.
That. So we got a lot of questions here from both of our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and also emails coming in. So
okay.
I'll take rather than hog you for myself, I'd love to have a chat the whole hour with you, and we'll do that over a glass of wine at a later date. But
absolutely.
For now, a question from Fana Weber. Good morning, Fana. Pride changed a lot during his time in the tribe. We got to know him as this fascinating, unapproachable, and calm man who was at one with nature in season 3. Later, as a male rat, he became much more, quotes, normal, something a bit, in the end, even ended up being addicted to the game. My question is, how did Nick like the development of his character, and which Pride does he prefer, season 3 Pride or season 4 Pride? Or maybe he does not share my impression of Pride changing so much at all. Interesting question, Nick, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think the story arc was a natural one. I mean, you kind of, and it's always it's a classic story of you set up, what are a character's principles, and then you force them to confront them and reevaluate them. So if Pride was to just stay out in the forest and never get involved in the game and be tempted, then there wouldn't be much of a story for me. He'd be a bit one-dimensional. So I think the idea of Pride obviously being so at one with the forest and out in nature and everything natural, I think it's a natural story arc for him to be confronted with the temptations of technology and see if his inner resolve is everything it's cracked up to be. So I think it was a natural storyline to explore there. With regards to preference over season 3 or season 4, I don't have a preference. I mean, it was certainly fun being out in the bush shooting at the eco camp like we did. But yeah, as I said, it's also a natural sort of story arc to bring him into the urban environment and provide him with temptations and sort of and see what happens.
Yeah, and probably as an actor, maybe there's a bit more dimensions, isn't there, in season 4, kind of Pride, season 5 Pride, but
absolutely.
And no, if I may say so, you brought all that together very, very well, and it's not easy because you know, when you establish yourself as you did in season 3, you know, to kind of you know, it made Pride, I think, very human and relatable, you know, because it's about addiction. That was the
absolutely
allegorically. I mean, it's all about and to show that addiction can befall even the most centered human being if exposed to it, and then, as you rightly say, it's that resolve to get back from it and to get back, you know. So I've got Diane Valdenezer. Good morning, Diana. Sorry, Diana Valdenezer. Wonderful. He was such a wonderful character and very well portrayed. Teen's crush memories. So I've got, now Diana's got about 6 questions here, so I'll try and, let's see. So number 1, what was your favorite moment on set?
Oh, favorite moment. I think that doing the fight with Lex was one of my favorite moments. Oh. I purely because I remember one of the very first things that Caleb and I ever did together was we had an open day at the studios, and Caleb and I did a sort of demonstration stunt fight sequence for the visitors, and so it was fun sort of getting to sort of do that for real with cameras rolling on set with him. So that was my favourite one.
It's interesting, isn't it, Nick, that a lot of the fans won't be aware that those fight scenes are very, very difficult to do, and both you and Caleb did them exceptionally well, and we're stunt coordinators, but I mean, to choreograph it, and it's not easy, and you both did it, and that's a take after take, and that, but it's not as easy as it looks. You make it look so natural, but because you could get hurt. I mean, and no, that's good. Now this is I'll leap to one of the. Sorry, Dinah, I won't go through all the 6, but number 5 is an interesting question. If you could have played any other tribe character, who would it be?
Oh, I think I would have picked Pride every time, to be honest. He's closest to my own heart, and yeah, I don't think I'd change for anything.
Yeah, that's interesting. That segues in very nicely to a question from Catherine Buckley. Good morning, Catherine. Are you anything like your character? Are you really into nature and the outdoors? Or are you the total opposite? Are you similar in some ways to Pride, Nick?
I am similar in several key ways. I certainly am. I enjoy nature for sure, and I certainly am kind of spiritual. Won't go too much into it, but I certainly believe there is a non-physical reality that we all participate in, with varying degrees of personal, self-awareness of the fact. And I certainly enjoy, getting out into the bush whenever I can. However, I'm also very tech savvy and into technology, and love certain elements of city living. So yeah, I am very similar to Pride, but also very much my own person too.
Well, that's very nice. That's and yeah, with your rock climbing and that must be interesting. Do you camp at all? Do you tend to tramp?
I do actually. New Zealand's great for this. In summer in particular, because I don't like having to pack away a wet tent if I can help it. But I certainly love getting away to the beach in summer when it's nice and hot, and pitching a tent and getting away from everything and being off grid. I absolutely love it.
No, that's great. No, I do too. I have to confess, I grew up where we used to tent in Scotland, so I know all about pitching tents, Nick, on wet grounds and but no, New Zealand, it's a spectacular country. It really is. It's just, isn't it, to get out there and just amazing. Now I've got an interesting one from Nikki Wallace. Good morning, Nikki. Which isn't a question actually. But it's quite fascinating. I almost named the kid Pride because of the tribe, but his dad wouldn't have it. That's interesting.
Dad probably doesn't understand the backstory.
Oh, that's right. I know somebody actually that there's a bit of a joke that a big Star Wars fan, and they called their first child Luke, and Luke was very happy about it. This little boy Luke, and then the daughter came along, and she was named Chewbacca. So I think that's a bit of a cross to bear, So actually, there's an interesting one here, Nick, from Leanne Brown. Good morning, Leanne. Which will Nick ever visit Scotland? Now, that's a very interesting question. I don't know the context, Leanne, but maybe you're trying to meet Nick. But have you ever been to Scotland, or you like to travel, Nick, don't you?
I do like to travel. My last trip was to South America, actually.
Wow.
I have not been to Scotland, though, though I'd very much like to. And I'm actually planning to maybe head out to England within the next 12 to 18 months, depending on when flights resume and how life goes. But I'd like to visit some family I've got over there. I potentially could see Scotland.
On your mum's side, then, you've got some still family living in England, is that right?
Well, actually, my mum's moving over there at the moment, so I'd be going to visit her. She's relocating over there with her partner.
Wow, that would be interesting, and that would be a great. Now, Nick, South America. Where did you go in South America?
I went to Ecuador.
Wow. And why there? Was it you were just intrigued? Were you doing climbing or just?
I went to do a meditation retreat actually out in the Ecuadorian Andes, up in the mountains of Ecuador. So I spent 10 days just meditating with the Shipibo Indians up there in the mountains. So it's a very Pride thing to do, to be honest. So it was very good. Yeah,
fascinating. And
yes, it was this last year actually.
Oh wow, that's a lovely experience. And
yes.
And where else have you travelled? Any other interesting exotic places in the world?
I explored a little bit of Chile on the way back from South America. It's a very different experience. A lot more urban than I would have thought initially. Australia, obviously. Thailand. Thailand actually I did. In the filming break between season 3 and 4, actually, of the tribe way back then. So it was a good trip. Myself and Dwayne actually went over there for that trip.
That's great.
And America, obviously. A few trips over there to Los Angeles and surrounding areas. Decided that I don't like Los Angeles very much.
No, it's the center of our universe in the industry, but it's.
I think that's changing.
Yeah. No, I actually, interestingly, again, we were discussing the other day that, New Zealand is becoming a mini Hollywood, and it's lucky, with Peter's successes in Taka, of course, and even young Tom Hearn, and it's lovely to see that industry, and it's there's a lot of talent, that's for sure, and amazing, Nick, the tribe, I say to a lot of people, it was made with God knows how many Academy Award winners, but our production was Dan Hanna, who went on to Lord of the Rings, and just so many. So many talented individuals, and it's a lovely And that Kiwi number 8 wire, that's what I like. It's that can-do, positive attitude that, where, it's just, we filmed very quickly on the tribe, and it was tremendous. So I'm now moving over to Instagram. I've got some questions here. Nick, bear with me. That if you were to choose a tribe during this actual lockdown, who would you choose, Malrats or Eco?
Eco, give me a break. Of course, we're out in the bush, so we're self-quarantining. We're self-sufficient because we create our own food and source our own water, and we're off the grid with regards to electronics. So we're quite happy out there in the bush doing our own Eco Tribe thing. Thank you very much.
No, that's good. Well done. That's a nice one. I've got one from Heather Heathbar. Good morning, Heathbar. I'm a huge fan and an aspiring actor in LA. That's an opportune question from what we've talked about.
Yes.
Thank you for being a part of this inspiring and entertaining show. Have you ever studied acting? If so, do you prefer using any specific techniques? Stella Adler, Stanislavski, Meisner. Thank you and keep the dream alive. That's from an actor in LA, and that's a cold place to be an actor, I would think. I mean, a difficult, heartbreaking auditioning all days, every day, I guess. But did you study acting at all, Nick?
Indeed. I certainly admire that person's determination to give it a go in LA. Good luck to you. I've done as a high school student, so it's sort of pre-tribe. I did Trinity College speech and drama exams, so quite formal sort of English style of performance. Post-tribe, after I moved to Australia, I did some Meisner method acting study and various little courses here and there. I did a few short courses at NIDA in Sydney. There's the Dramatic Academy attached to the University of New South Wales. But mostly, most of my acting education is just as a result of spending a lot of time alone reading, time feeding my imagination, and just playing, really. I think if you're intending to take acting seriously, you should certainly educate yourself as much as possible on every technique available to you. But don't get bogged down in any one particular technique, as they've all got strengths and weaknesses. And at the end of the day, the goal should be to simply present the truth of the material in as truthful a way as possible through your speech and body. So you never stop learning, and you'll eventually find what works for you and what works for the job at hand.
Well, that's good advice, Nick, and I echo your best wishes to the young actor. Good luck.
Absolutely, good luck to you.
Yeah, it's not easy, but you gotta chase your dreams and go for it, and always believe in yourself. Never lose hope, and you just never ever know that
they've got to cast someone, and it may as well be you.
Yeah, that I often when I was very young, and as I say, my dream was, I was loving music, but my very first novel, I had 1,000 rejections on that novel, and I kept going, and I thought, I'm either stupid or but one person said yes. So that was very profound for me, Nick, because I thought all it takes, you can have 1,000 no's, and all it takes is one person say yes, and it can change your life. So, nothing succeeds like patience and persistence, and talent. I think comes second to persistence. You must persist and keep the dream and hope and never lose faith. And I mean, my goodness, it probably took about 20 years to come to existence in the first place. But that's it wouldn't have happened had I accepted when people said, no, that will never work. If you say, okay, I believe, you've got to believe in yourself. And
yes.
So yeah, good luck with that. And I've got another one from Maria 87 from our Google, the Tribe TV series. YouTube channel. How did your role as Pride, if any way, influence you later in life? Did you have any influences from that time, Nick? Did you take away anything from that time? Do you think that you've used in your life?
I guess being able to indulge my sort of greeny spiritual side through Pride sort of helped me to sort of explore those aspects more in my own life. Yeah, I think Pride certainly left an indelible mark on me.
Nick, I've got another question here. This is an Instagram question from Kalamazoo. Good morning, Kalamazoo. Eco Pride was my favorite Pride. What was your favorite? Were you sad to see the long hair go? Well, I think you've answered that one, Nick, about the long hair.
Oh yeah, Eco Tribe is my boys and girls.
Yeah.
Of course, they're my favorite.
No, that's good. And I've got another one here from Morgana Ann. That's an interesting name, Morgana. Good mornings. Hey, Nick. Pride was absolutely my favorite character. And while I am of the Navajo tribe in America, I identify Pride quite a bit. You did the most amazing job portraying such a spiritual individual. Was it difficult acting transition when Pride went from a nature-loving character to one dealing with addiction? I certainly missed your character when you left, and I'm ever so grateful to have been part of your journey. That's very nice. Very nice.
Very, very kind question there. No, it wasn't a difficult thing, but it was certainly an enjoyable storyline to help tell, for sure. And I think it's even prescient today. I think social media addiction is a big problem. We mentioned earlier in the conversation about needing to cut out maybe watching the news so much. I think people could do with cutting out social media a bit as well, because it is an addiction. And I think we explored that theme well ahead of its time back in the tribe there, with Pride going through the game and all that sort of business.
Yes, no, I think that's quite right. It's frightening, really. I mean, when you look back and, where, creatively I wanted, as you rightly said, Nick, to explore the responsibilities of technology. I embraced technology, but equally, I was always worried for, my children, for my grandchildren, for successive generations. As good as technology is, that if we're not careful, it can go off into a different direction and become very addictive. I totally agree with you. And bear with me. I've got one from Stephen Murst. Stefan Murst. Good morning, Stefan. What was it like on the set of The Tribe, and was it like off camera? And would you do what would you do if something like The Tribe was happening in the real world? Sincerely, one of your many fans from the United Kingdom.
Well, offset, it was great fun. It was basically a collection of young people all getting to play it, being movie stars and having a great lot of fun filming the show. It was like a tight little family offset, and we enjoyed it very much. What was the second part of the question there?
It was what would you do if something like The Tribe was to happen in the real world? I suppose Stefan is meaning if this did evolve. I mean, I don't think it will, but this virus, it's in a way you're doing what your original advice was, Nick. Was to keep physically healthy and to look after yourself and to try and keep your mental health as well as your physical health.
Yes.
But you I think would survive in the wilderness. Would you go off? I'd head for the hills. I wouldn't go into the city. I'd go to the hills. I think you probably would as well, from what I know.
Yeah, it would all depend on where you happen to find yourself at the time that it all happened. I mean, of course, because all the very, very clever idea of yours, Raymond, to base the whole show around a mall. Because if you think about it, what are malls like right at this moment? They're all shut down and fully stocked. So as an initial sort of place to go to grab resource, food and equipment, that sort of thing, a mall would be an absolutely perfect place to go to gear up. But of course, it's not going to get resupplied. So I think the smart thing to do would be to this is not advice, by the way, for anyone. But I think going to an abandoned mall and stocking up and then getting out to the bush would be the way to go.
No,
Raid all the camping equipment, maybe.
Yeah, or toilet paper, and
The toilet paper.
That's as we were saying before we recorded that for some reason in Australia, toilet paper has become the new gold, and
Yes.
isn't it interesting, Nick, how things that you take for granted, I mean, the other day I couldn't get any. I love coffee, and I couldn't get jars of coffee, and so people seem to panic by it. I don't quite understand it, and I mean, I do, I suppose. People think they don't want to be without coffee and certainly without loo roll, but it shows you, it makes you appreciate these things. Where the other day I was so thrilled. It was like I as I said, a pile of gold, and it was 2 rolls of toilet paper. It's amazing. And
oh my goodness!
Yeah. Did
it cost you $100 for those 2 rolls?
No, it didn't actually. I would have gladly paid that. I have to tell you that. Now, when you go to the store and the shelves are empty, it's frightening, really, and it makes you really realize and take stock of just what the essential things are. Nick, are you a gardener? Do you like gardening? Do you grow vegetables? Are you into that?
Yes, I am. I am. Like, in fact, I just planted some winter vegetables, but I had some seeds sent to me by a very, very good friend. So I've just planted some spinach and some beets and a few other things that I hope to harvest as winter goes on. So actually, yes, I am into gardening.
Yeah, that's fabulous. I love doing that. On our vineyard, we have a huge vegetable garden, and I find it, I love it. I love growing your own food, and that's very therapeutic, isn't it? The
independence, yeah, it's so healthy too.
It is. It's great, and I think it's wonderful. And Nick, we mentioned briefly before we started recording, we were talking about natural medicines. I mean, you're into that as well. You believe in some of the natural medicines?
Oh, absolutely. I think we'd be fools to ignore what nature provides for us. I'm not sure how much I should say about things like cannabis and that sort of stuff, but there are some fantastic therapeutic benefits on offer from the natural world. I also think it's important to pay attention to the advice that your medical practitioner provides to you.
Yes.
So I would certainly recommend natural remedies, but not to the exclusion of your medical professional.
I think that's wise advice as well. And yeah, I mean, cannabis is becoming legalized all over the world, and it's medically proven that that can give some comfort to some very ill people in that. And Nick,
absolutely.
My late mother, bless her, was part Romany gypsy, but part Scottish. But I mean, she was very much a woman of nature, of the natural world, and taught me, where a nettle grows, generally a couple of feet away will be a dock leaf. And if you pick the dock leaf and rub it on the nettle sting, it will get rid of it. So I'm very much interested. And when I was a lad, I was growing up, she'd make, we'd have bone marrow. And I mean, most of my family are vegetarians and vegans, and they'd be horrified. But chicken soup, and that's like a penicillin almost. And are you
yes.
a vegetarian, Nick, or are you a meat eater?
I was when I was playing Pride. At the time I was certainly vegetarian. I would not touch anything that had a face. Was my criteria. I've since relaxed those rules for myself, but I still tend to eat as healthy as possible. And these days I don't touch pork, for instance. I won't eat anything made from pig flesh. Not because I have a religious belief around it. I'm not Muslim or Jewish. It's just for me a health choice. And pig pig flesh just is a bit too close to human flesh for me. I figure you're a borderline cannibal if you eat it. But I also try not to judge other people too much for what they choose to eat, because everyone's got different needs in their life.
Are you religious, Nick?
I'm not sure I'd say that I am religious. I guess I'm kind of spiritual, but you know what? I know about as much as anyone else. I guess I'll figure it all out when I pass away. But I figure the safest bet is to try and be as good a person as possible in this lifetime as possible, so that just in case God's real,
yes,
I'm in his good books. And if not, then, well, I've done my best I can anyway.
No, that's a good one. And Nick, have you any unfulfilled ambitions? Anything that in the future, something on your bucket list that you'd like to do that you haven't done? I mean, apart from climbing, maybe any country you'd like to visit that's apart from England. I mean, any other place in the world you'd really like to experience?
I want to experience everything that life has to offer. I mean, specifically, I certainly would like to see England, and I'd like to see Scandinavia, and I mean, those are just travel dreams. I mean, I'd also maybe one day become a father. That would be nice. But to be honest, I'm pretty happy with where I'm at in life right now. I mean, I happen to be in New Zealand, which is a huge blessing, particularly in these times. I continue to be employed in television, which is, wow, like so many people don't have jobs right now. I have good family around me. There are things I'd like to do, or my ego would like to do, but if I'm really brutally honest, I'm pretty happy and fulfilled at the moment. So I'll just take, whatever comes.
No, that's a good outlook, I think, and well done to you. And that's important. I mean, contentment is within, isn't it? Really, you can
absolutely.
You won't find it in Hollywood. You won't find it in any Oscars or winning the lottery. It's within, and very, very interesting. So I think you've got the right balance there, and that's a good, an excellent outlook. And well, Nick, our hours have flown by as it always does, and
already,
yeah, it's just crazy how fast the time has gone by, and you've given some, I think, good thoughts and advice to your tribal brothers and sisters in this uneasy time to just slow it down and to get too worried or frightened, and Nick, it's coming up to we were mentioning before we started recording 20 years. Is there anything you'd like to say to the fans on the 20th anniversary of the tribe?
Thank you for watching the show and enjoying it and being such loyal fans. Like when we did this 20 years ago, I never would have anticipated that it would still be a going concern this far on. But here we are, and I feel incredibly blessed to have had the tribe as part of my journey, and I'm incredibly proud to have had the opportunity to play Pride. Keep the dream alive.
Well, that's very lovely. And I can tell you on behalf of all the Cloud9 team, Nick, that we were blessed having you as part of our tribe. And you brought a very special and magical dimension. And we're very blessed. And I know I speak on behalf of all the fans around the world that they would like to thank you for not only your tremendous performance and contribution to the series, but also for being who you are, and for taking as a testament to who you are as a human being, Nick, that you've taken this time out of very busy man with your editing and all the work you've got going. But it's very lovely that you will take an hour to join and have a chat with me, and I know I speak on behalf, as I say, of the fans, to thank you for that. So well done to you. And And so I'll just close up, if I may, just by wishing all the very best and lots of love from Nick and I to all of you out there in Tribe World. Nick, and to echo Nick, saying you keep the dream alive, and onwards and upwards. We'll get through this time together, and there's better horizons ahead, I think, Nick?
Absolutely, absolutely. Just remember to turn off your device from time to time and look out in the real world. It's beautiful out there.
Yeah, well, I think that's excellent advice. Well done to you, Nick. You take good care of yourself, and it's been lovely to catch up and have a chat, and I look forward to the next time very much indeed. So until then, all the very best to everyone, and thank you for listening, and thank you, Nick, for your input today. It's been enjoyable, friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ray. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye, everybody.